I love to watch documentaries. I love the opportunity to learn, whether that be about a certain subject or about history. In this case, two fields are intertwined: history and art. Something that I used to be passionate about, if in school. I've always been a very artistic person, whatever that might be. But in terms of literal art projects and things that people think of like arts and crafts or paintings or even architecture interest. That was more so pertinent in my grade school days. It's something I've carried with me. But, as you grow and as life, goes on, times change. You only have so much time to do whatever you want. So for me, I like to live kind of, and reminisce about the past or the potential of future, what could have been, if I had pursued more devotion to art through documentaries and in studying history and perhaps famous artists. And there's been some creative documentaries that I've seen. We'll see how well executed this one is. For example, when I think of artistic themed documentaries, I always think of that Loving Vincent movie. It's just beautiful if you've never seen it. I've seen it, I think, twice at this point. But it's an art documentary based on Vincent van Gogh, and it features handcrafted or handmade paintings, I believe, that are told through a digital lens. So you're watching Vincent van Gogh's story, as well as maybe other characters, told through the art style of Vincent van Gogh, and a style that mimics him. And it displays Vincent van Gogh according to the way he would have illustrated, his paintings and his work. It also features, it differentiates its style as well. They did Gauguin too, and they separated the way that it was depicted. It was just a beautiful film. If you'd never seen it, it's excellent. But where will AALTO, Architect of Emotions, stand? I mean, that's kind of a beautiful title, especially you think of art. Emotions. They're depending on how you utilize them and how much presence they have of an artistic project, they're pertinent to the successful work in terms of the overall message or the feeling of the piece. And I don't know about this artist specifically, AALTO or Alto. So this is very much a first introduction for me. But let's learn about him. In case you never heard of this guy, this is what it says according to IMDb. The captivating exploration of AALTO, again, I might be mispronouncing that and apologize if I am, the defining figure in Scandic design and one of Europe's greatest modern architects, focuses on his remarkable and loving partnership with wife Aino. Theirs was a profoundly humanist vision that put people at the center of design and ranged from work and furniture design through to huge architectural projects. They mixed with and influenced major figures of modernist art and design, including, I'm going to butcher these names, sorry if I do, Le Corbusier, I don't know, Grappi, only Nagy and Frank Lloyd Wright. It's the only one I recognize. Come on a cinematic tour of their iconic buildings all over the world, from a library in Russia, a student dormitory at MIT, an art collector's private house near Paris, to a pavilion in Venice. Narrated by experts in the field and featuring never-before-seen archive footage, it also tells the love story of an extraordinary couple with a great passion for human-scale architecture. Well, that sounds beautiful. For me, I've always had an interest in architecture just based on the beautiful designs you can see, especially, when you go into the city or you go to a countryside visit or you go to some sort of, tourist spot, and you just see how crafty people can be in their physical executions of the constructs that they make. And there's some beautiful, manifestations, but watching this, I like the way this is articulated. Maybe I hope I'm reading this right. So you're literally going through a cinematic tour through a movie, through different spots that I imagine are pertinent to their work, including a library in Russia, a student dormitory at MIT, art collector's private house near Paris, pavilion in Venice. So you're literally going on a point-by-point tour journey through different locations that are pertinent to AALTO's work. I think that's a beautiful way to illustrate the film. I wonder if that's how it's navigated. From we start at one, we go for another, and as we process each location, we learn more about the artist at the center of it. I mean, I've have my complaints perhaps about, although I can't judge AALTO specifically, but they referred specifically to modern art and I think modernism or postmodernism. I'm like, I've seen some art videos online that I've seen art manifestations in terms of modern architecture, and it's pretty ugly manifestations. But the older buildings throughout history, maybe there's something here. Maybe AALTO's a distinguisher in regard to the different styles of the executions of his art, or he and his wife. But I don't know. I just think of modern art. I'm like, I've got some complaints, but let's see. It's just like, it's sometimes aesthetically not pleasing, especially the stuff nowadays. But let's see how AALTO is. I'm not going to try and paint everybody by a broad brush, but they say modern art. I'm like, oh yeah, I had to go there. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the trailer for this. It's not a newer release. It's an older one. It's been on my list for some time, so I apologize for being so late. But I do like watching art documentaries, so this easily appeals to me. Again, like I said, Loving Vincent was an automatic doorway for me to explore more of this. And there's been other films, too. There's one, I think, that was on... might not be on Netflix. I thought it was on Netflix, though. It's like some lost artist. Oh, I forget his name. I'll reference it here with a poster. But let's see AALTO's journey play out. I'm going to pull up the trailer here and let's learn a bit more. Maybe you don't know about this artist either, or maybe you're a big fan. Wherever the case, let's reminisce on history. Here we go.
Minun tietysti täytyy muutama sana sanoa, mutta
vaikeus
on siinä, että nimenomaista rakennuksesta. Ne voi sanoa plus enkä miinus.
There's a fluidity. That's something I haven't seen like every modern art picture. That's beautiful though. I love the design there. Oh, and the plants are a nice aesthetic too.
AALTO was a Finnish architect who was one of the great masters of 20th century modern movement architecture.
Modern movement, okay. That's something that I don't see in a lot of other modern architecture, what I'm thinking of from what I've seen.
They clearly worked as a team.
Like I said, I didn't want to paint everybody by a broad
They charmed
brush.
the Rockefellers. She dies of cancer in 1949.
Being a bit much at least some of the presentations that I saw that image, right? But, or a couple shots ago. But the art itself is pretty.
He was an opportunist. He was ambitious, and if an opportunity came, he grabbed it.
That's pretty. That does take some ingenuity to get to master that wood design. I couldn't do it if I tried. Oh, I like the way that lamp was built. Some of the buildings appear a bit like that one. That's a bit blocky to my liking. Looks like a government facility. If anyone gets imprisoned there, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe at least if that's the interior, maybe that's different.
Architecture was life for the AALTOs.
AALTO.
And it was really the essence of who they were.
See, I like that emphasis again on the art. You know, that art is oftentimes, especially for the creative mind, it's the epicenter of someone's life, as it is for mine. I mean, maybe I haven't been able to focus on like traditional, what people would equate to arts and crafts projects like painting or, you know, sketch artists or sketch drawing or things like that, or even architecture. I mean, I'm into like DIY projects, but that's more so just from, you know, a self empowerment perspective. Sometimes I just go to the store too. I'm just not that well pleased by what I see in terms of the quality of the products that they carry. And I'd rather design something for myself and be able to see a product of, you know, so much labor went into this. And, you know, it's a skill, right? Like woodworking or just building furniture or assembling it in any way. That takes time. It takes effort and concentration. This looks really good, though, from an art perspective. I really like what I'm seeing from some of the designs. Maybe not all of them. You know, I agree with some of the sentiments I've heard from others with modern art. Like, again, this looks like a prison cell. I would not want to be in the building. And the design here in terms of like the, I guess, these circles on the floor are kind of weird. Bit obscure. But just the overall structure, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But the wave patterns are nice. I mean, that's a beautiful design. Especially like some of the more ruralized creations. This wavy design at the beginning with the wood, I love that. It's very fluid. It moves. This library design, I like the stairway. The roof is a bit uniform and mundane. It's not like in a good way in terms of my personal tastes. But the organization, it's very easy to, you know, track where you are. It just looks a bit stale to me in the presentation. But like his wave patterns, those are beautiful. The scale of this room is nice. And that's the one that features like the wave roof. Oh, and when it snows outside too, I didn't even notice it. That's, oh, beautiful aesthetics. I'm sure the property value on that is pretty expensive. The plant design here is just, that really accentuates the room. Even if perhaps some people would look at that and be like, you know, I would agree that the windows again, a lot of squares, right? But they do play around, like they got the wavy patterns. But some of this, some of the more block-shaped houses look fine too. Like for example, this one by the staircase looks nice, but they do employ like a lot of waves in their work. These chairs are nice, by the way, and I think it's a lamp too. Almost looks a bit like a beehive, but I'm like, okay. So don't get close to your lamps, apparently. But like this house on the exterior is just, I like this. It's a bit of a modern cabin. So it's very different from like what people think of. Like, oh, you think like of a log cabin like out in the woods somewhere. And this is like, well, this is the modern version. This is the one that has a little more expensiveness and perhaps city influence. But it's still very pretty. I mean, it's a very scenic house to walk into. But again, I love the idea of going from location to location and admiring art in that way and learning more about the artist. Even if perhaps maybe the artistic works themselves aren't to the liking of everybody. Again, art is very subjective, right? Some people might look at the, like the government-looking building and say like, oh, this is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. I don't agree, but I'm like, okay, more power to you if that's kind of your philosophy. But, I don't know. I like the wave patterns that are employed in their art. That really seems like a staple element to me, and it really is attractive. They definitely, some of the art, I think it's 50-50 for me, but for the most part, again, the format to this documentary, that for me excels. And I'm interested to see, walking through somebody's life, like a point-by-point structure. I think that's a very attractive way of going about storytelling, especially within a documentary lens. I'd love to see another art documentary project. That easily appeals to me. What are your thoughts with AALTO, Architect of Emotions? I wonder maybe the wave pattern is meant to resemble something like psychological or emotive in nature. Perhaps like the fluidity of mood, or I'm going to sound like some snooty art critic if I'm not careful. It's like, well, it's the way artists sometimes communicate. I mean, artists speak at maybe a deeper level sometimes, but yeah, maybe it can come across a bit snooty sometimes. I agree. There's a defining quality to art in the way of emotion, so something you have to consider. What is this image supposed to resemble? But what are your thoughts of AALTO, Architect of Emotions, if this is a first introduction for you, or given the release date of this, perhaps you've already seen it. Maybe you're into art documentaries and you just haven't checked this one, or you've already seen this and maybe this is a staple within your collection. But, for those of you who haven't, would you find this to your liking? And do you think, maybe you're somebody who is a long time, or maybe you're a fresh viewer when it comes to art documentaries? Would you give us a look? Feel free to contribute your thoughts down below. Long story short, I think it looks great. Some of the content, perhaps, that was included like earlier on, it was a very brief shot, at least of someone dancing, but it's kind of like, it looked like there was some nudity there. I didn't know how much I liked that, but if I read the shot right, it was in darker lights. It was not exactly as decipherable as I would think it would be. But overall, when it pertains to the art projects and the mechanism to have a story, as I'm reading from the synopsis is being organized, I think it's a beautiful articulation. I'm very excited to learn more about an artist that I've presently not come into a circle of knowledge of, or he or his wife, but I'm excited to learn more for a very unique vision. Even if perhaps some of the art projects it's like 50-50 for me in terms of the ones I like versus maybe the styles I don't prefer. But either way, I like to learn about people's lives, especially in the context of history, and documentaries are a great avenue for that. So I'm very interested in giving AALTO a window of opportunity to examine AALTO's life, or the AALTO's lives, I should say. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.